loved ones. One Love Consciousness Movement. One Love Spirit Center. We are a movement that has decided to coalesce around this concept that we are all of one presence, that there's one power in the universe, God the Good, and that we are of that same power, that we are of that same substance. And even the people we come in contact with that we don't like necessarily, they're still of that same substance. We all originate from the same source, and we are resources. We are constantly creating. The question is, what is it that we are creating? And what is it that we're sourcing out into the world? And so our goal here is to study constantly, practice consistently, love, joy, and peace, because those are three major things that it seems just about everyone in the world wants to experience and have in their life. And the reason I think that is because it's a universal thing. I believe it is the desire of the source that we all be manifestations, walking and talking in that vibrational frequency of love, joy, and peace. When we do that, we begin to affect the world toward the good instead of infecting the world toward what we consider to be bad or lower vibrational frequencies. I was sharing with some folks here actually at First Unity yesterday that I think that's why it's important for us to start thinking about the vibration even of our words, of our questions and our questioning. What quest does your question send you on? Because you're going to get an answer back from the universe at the level of your vibration. And so, for instance, when something is going wrong in your life, instead of asking what is wrong, because when you ask what is wrong, the universe is going to present to you what is wrong or what is in that lower vibration. Instead of asking what is wrong, ask what is real and where is the solution? What blessing can I find in this? What lesson can I find in this? And then you begin to become solution-minded. As a result, you solve what is considered to be or thought to be the problem. And you start to kind of realize, man, I don't believe there's any real problems in the world. I don't have to live from problem thinking. I can always be living from solution thinking that I'm consistently bringing into my life, attracting into my human experience the expression of the divinity in all of life. And I'm allowing the natural flow of love, joy, and peace to unfold in my being. One of the things we've been sharing over the last several weeks, really since the beginning of the year, is kind of a peek into our way and our philosophy of thinking as a movement. Some of the things that I've shared with you have just been about basic principles, not as much beliefs, but what we think are the truth or is the truth or truths that we're choosing to espouse. Like I choose to espouse that I am not just loving other people, but that I am love itself showing up in human form. I choose to believe that life was meant to be enjoyed rather than survived. I was meant to thrive. So these are things I'm choosing as principles for my life. I choose to believe that peace is possible, and as a result of that, I am creating a peaceful inner environment, and as the result of a peaceful inner environment, I believe that I'm affecting the world toward being more peaceful. Some of these things that I'm sharing right now it's not like it's anything that you haven't heard or that you might not even know, but how much do we know it? How much do we study it? You know, for me, these principles are not just things I talk about, but things I am intentionally living in every moment of my life. You know, I've said to you before, I've built new habits, and as a result, I have built a new habitat to live in. I believe that I am the expression of God in human form. I believe that. I believe that I'm a walking divine being who was created by the Creator to create as a God. I was created by God, the Creator, to be creative and to create as a God. So I believe that my life, the manifestation of the things that are happening in my experience, are the direct result of my internal state of being. My internal state determines my external experience. And so instead of being a victim of the circumstances, I decide the circumstances. I decide how this life is going to play out. And I believe that you have the authority to do the very same thing. So last week we looked at a few things, and I wanted to share with us. Number one, last week we looked at the fact that everything has a dharma, which basically means it has an inherent nature. In Hinduism, it's basically dharma is thought of as the underlying behavior or social order of a particular organism. So everything has a dharma. It has an inherent nature. It has an inherent reality. Number two, we talked about how we should show compassion, not just say we're loving, but show up as compassion. And then we looked at the power of finding strength in curiosity and flexibility. And this week, I want us to get into a little more of these principles. We'll get through as many as we can this evening, but just wanted to remind us of what One Love as a movement really thinks, our philosophy, what we're setting our intention to be and to play out. And I think we looked last week a little bit at the power of I am, but I wanted to look at this because one of the people I feel like that brought this principle really to life for me was Dr. Wayne Dyer. And Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote, and I'm going to just touch on this because we touched on it quite a bit last week. I'm going to touch on this just once again to kind of get us started. He talked about the power of I am in his book, Wishes Fulfilled. And he said that when we are operating in the I am and we use the words I am, we are invoking our godlike divine part of ourselves. In other words, we're asserting our divine nature and inserting our divine nature when we start to say I am. So we need to be conscious what we follow with the words I am. What words and actions follow I am? In a practical way, to be able to say I am peace instead of saying I am feeling chaotic. You could say there's a feeling of chaos, but I know I am peace. So my declaration that follows I am is peace. I insert and assert my divine nature, my very consciousness. I insert an energy of being able to manage whatever my heart is presenting to me. To me, spiritual practice is about becoming able to deal with whatever emotions the heart presents. To getting to the place where I can manage my feelings instead of being managed by them. Practicing the reality that this is my business in life, and it's my business to learn how to manage my emotions, manage my feelings, and manage my thoughts. You see, I believe firmly that not a single thought has power. But once I inject that thought with a belief about the thought, I determine whether it gains energy and starts to work in my life. So thoughts in and of themselves have no power. I have the power. But I can decide which thoughts I will give my energy to, and therefore that determines which thoughts will grow and glow from my life. So I choose to only invest my energy into thoughts that I want to produce and show up as fruit in my life. I realize that I'm the gardener of the garden of my being. And so I'm determining which thoughts. The same thing is true for the ego. The ego is not meant to be destroyed. In fact, if you think you're destroying it, you're just injecting that powerful energy into it. It's in some way supposed to be a part of this human experience, otherwise we wouldn't have one. So it's not about what the ego does or says. It's really more about how serious I take it. I'll put it that way. My thoughts, the thoughts don't have power, but it's a matter of whether I believe the thoughts or not. Eckhart Tolle says this wonderfully. One of the highest spiritual practices you can have is to stop believing every thought. The thought comes to you, but it doesn't have to flow from you, because you can stop that thought with the gate of your presence. And you can decide which thoughts you're going to give your energy to. So be mindful of that as you're thinking about your words. With saying the words I am, what is following those words? You can begin to program your subconscious mind to activate only those thoughts that you wish to manifest and become reality in your life. And then we talked about letting go of the false ideas of I am what I have. We talked about relieving ourselves of the beliefs that I am what I achieve, that I am what people think of me, that I'm separate from everything that I want in my life, and that I'm separate from God. Letting those things go. Let go of those false ideas. And then number 6, I wanted to bring us to this today. Number 6, stop interfering with your own life. One of the things that I learned years ago, it became clear to me that while I'm in my mother's womb, in the prenatal state, after the conception of birth, after the conception of my parents coming together and creating this human form, while I'm in my mother's womb, I never even thought about what might be wrong in the world. I didn't think about the Dow Jones. I didn't think about stocks and bonds. I didn't think about my race, my sexual orientation. Those things weren't even a part of any of the process. I didn't think about the fact that for a long time in the mother's womb, I didn't even have a nose. And I wasn't freaking out or having anxiety about that unfolding. It was complete surrender. And the universe, the source power, was creating and in the process of creating this form perfectly. And so I asked myself, if I was completely taken care of by this source in my mother's womb, if I had whatever I need supplied in the mother's womb, if I'm not worried in that state, why can't it be the same in my adult life? I'm asking us to implement this way of seeing and being in our adult lives, not surrendering to the waves of happenstance or the stresses of this life. Don't surrender your freedom or give your power away. Let go and surrender to whatever is going to happen and stop interfering with your own life. Stop fighting. Just allow Source to lead you. What we resist will persist, and what we fight, we ultimately ignite. It's about surrender. The same source, the same presence that formed you in your mother's womb is still available to help you create the formula for a great life in the here and now in your state of being. And it is the animating force that dwells within you and is showing up as you trust and obey. There's an old song of the church that says, trust and obey, for there's no other way. And of course it says to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. There's no way to be happy and fulfilled in this life unless you trust and obey. Trust the source. Trust the I am. Trust God. And obey the leading of the Holy Spirit, and watch happiness and joy show up in your life. It sure beats living your life stress all of the time. You may as well surrender, because you're not going to control the natural flow of things, no matter how much you think you are. You can manage your responses to it, but you're not in control of what's happening out in the natural world. You're only managing your inner responses. And so I think it's important for us to stop interfering with our own life and surrender. Again, life was not meant to be survived. It was meant to be lived. You were meant to thrive. And you can do that really as you surrender to the pure presence, the ultimate source of all things. And then the number 7 was start enjoying the mystery of life. Instead of being so focused on history, his story or her story, and let me explain what I mean. The 20-year-old me had a particular narrative, but that is his story. The 20-year-old me no longer exists. So am I going to let that person, that persona that existed 20 years ago, tell the story of my current day? No, I'm not going to rely on his or her story. I am choosing to tell my current story. I am choosing to live in a state of mind where I recognize that I have the ability to write my own story, to do it accurately, to create a new narrative. And so the Tao Te Ching actually tells us to enjoy the mystery of life and stop always trying to control, fight, or interfere. Let the world, as the Tao says, let the world unfold without always attempting to figure it all out. I like to say, let relationships just be. Don't try hard to make something work. Simply allow. People who are working hard on themselves or working hard on their relationships, to me, have not learned yet to surrender to the loving awareness. When you surrender to the loving awareness, you show up as your authentic self. Your vibe reveals your tribe, and that includes spouses or partners or family members. Some people are not family as much as they're relatives, and you may have to come to the place where you're aware of that. That there's some people who are relatives, they're blood relation to you, but they aren't really necessarily family. Family are those, to me, in my opinion, family are those who get you and who allow you the freedom to be your true and authentic self. So enjoy the mystery of this life instead of always trying to figure it out. Relax and let go. Allow. I've told you so many times about the t-shirt that I have that says, relax, nothing is under control. It's so true. Life is a mystery, consistently unfolding. Enjoy it. One of the reasons that I know it's natural for us to enjoy the mystery is because nearly every day there's a movie being filmed somewhere. We enjoy having an interesting story. If you went to a movie and from the very beginning they told you the plot without taking you down a pathway of a little bit of mystery, if the whole entire 90 minutes was nothing but the plot being, if they told you the plot at the beginning, you wouldn't even want to stay till the end. The same is true for this life that we're living. It's a mystery in so many ways, so allow it. Relax, let go. Too often we are more connected to our history and not free to be and enjoy the mystery. This is one of the reasons that we challenge even religious expression. See, the Jesus of history was a fantastic figure who, according to kinesiological studies, embodied the full presence of God nature. And so Jesus quite possibly was the most powerful and most self-realized conscious being that walked the planet according to history. But Jesus himself essentially told us to not worship him. Because listen, it takes a lot of work to be a person, but it takes no work to be your true self. And Jesus was revealing the true self, which is the Christ consciousness that dwelled within him, not the Jesus of his race, his religion, his color, his nation of origin. That Jesus person, fantastic, great. Let's give honor where honor is due. But the Christ mystery, more than the Jesus of history, is what we should allow to inspire our lives. And furthermore, the John of history is not near as important as the Christ of mystery that I'm showing up as. Because the word Christ is not relegated to Christianity. The word Christ is really a title for essentially a Buddha, an enlightened or self-realized individual. That's really all it is. It's not Jesus' last name. And the same is true for me. I show up in this human form as John, but the animating force is that Christ consciousness that's within me. It is that Brahman that is within me. It is that pure presence, that essence, that divine presence that was and is before time was measured. That's the timeless, blameless, labelless, skinless, sinless, divine self that I am and that you are too. So enjoy the mystery of that. Allow it to unfold instead of trying to control it. Don't think that you have to quantify and qualify and measure everything in this life. Some things just is as they is. How you respond is determined by your level of spiritual maturity, and the maturation also sometimes comes with time. So give yourself room to enjoy the mystery. And number 8, practice radical humility. Live low, stay low like the ocean, and watch everything in your life be attracted to you. I believe it seems like it was either Deepak Chopra or Dr. Wayne Dyer said that the ocean stays low, and that's why every other stream of water in the world seeks it out. The ocean stays low and stays humble, and yet it controls a lot of the natural flow of this planet. One of the best ways to jump high is to get low. So look in your life at those times where you felt like you were the lowest and realize it was in those moments that maybe the ego was taking a licking, but you were being prepared to, for lack of better terms, pole vault or leap forward. Radical humility puts you in the position for a higher leap. So practice radical humility. Instead of needing to be the one who's seen, the one who's credited, the one who is famous, instead of having the need to be acknowledged, stay in that place of radical humility, and from that place you might just find your launching pad for this existence. And then number 9, the only thing that's real is that which changes not. That was a quote from Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras. The only thing that's real is that which changes not. And this body is constantly changing. My perspectives about this life, constantly changing. My relationships have ebbs and flows, constantly changing. That means those are not real in reality. Those are not the absolute necessities. The only thing that is real is that which changes not. And the animator, the true me, has been here since before I was formed in my mother's womb. And the real me has been in a newborn's body, in a toddler's body, in a first grader's body, in a teenager's body, in a young adult's body, in a preacher's body, a bishop's body, now in a heretic's body. The 46-year-old me is I am aware of him. I'm aware of Jon Scott. I speak of him as a third party or in a third reality because I'm distant, and yet I realize my connection in this human expression and experience. But I'm not attached to the Jon Scott body. So when somebody attacks the Jon Scott person, I feel a little bit of a sense of separation from him, and I can say that there are times that he makes choices. There are times that he may not fully embody the consciousness that I'm aware of at this present moment. So I give him a break. I don't judge him. When COVID was running rampant, this body, this person, Jon Scott, developed COVID. My spiritual self is impervious to that, is completely and totally immune to dis-ease. My true self is never diseased. You can't harm it. You can't bruise it. You can't wound it. You can't offend it. I'm very aware of that, and that's the part of me that changes not, is perfect just the way I am. When you become aware of your perfection in the divine, you start to bring that expression of perfection into your human experience. And you realize that the way humans measure perfection is completely asinine. Because perfection is not about having it all together or being without flaw in the humanness. Perfection is the recognition of the divine order of things that always just is. And it doesn't need to judge anything else outside of you. In fact, it nurtures without judgment. But I believe that everything else is an illusion except for that which changes not, because that is the real thing. For example, my body's constantly changing. The body that I had at 5 years old does not exist anymore, as I've mentioned to you before. Thus, the body's not real. It's merely an illusion. Our soul, or our spirit, however, is the unchanging infinite. This part of us is the real reality. It's the for real reality. When looking at life from this perspective, the small, mundane conditions that are ruled in this life, or seem to be the rules of this life, are unimportant. We recognize that they are fleeting. And in this same arena, we can note that the ego is an illusion, and that it tells us we're separate from what we want in life. When we know that the ego is an illusion, when we know that the personality is an illusion, we start to live from the real self. And when we do that, and I'm talking about practicing this, because again, what I'm talking to you about, you've read about, you've heard it from multiple teachers. It's nothing new. The information itself, all I can hope is that in the midst of the information that you're hearing this evening, that you'll catch the inspiration, which is to be in spirit, and you'll get into the practice of this and make these principles a practice. When you make principles a practice, you make this, the energy that comes with them, practical for your life, touchable and tangible. And then lastly, we'll finish this up this week. When you're living from this place of a consistent awareness of your divinity, you start then to live a life of service. And you start to ask, how may I serve? And how may I be reverent? I have referenced Dr. Dyer several times during this time because Dr. Dyer taught these principles in some sort of way in just about his entire life, especially the last 20 years of his life, as he was really leaning more into spiritual principles. But Dr. Dyer urged us in his writings to make this question our top priority. How may I serve and how may I be reverent? This is an encouragement, folks, to surrender to something bigger than ourselves. To take the focus, we just talked about it, off of the temporary and put our focus on the permanent. And instead of making a withdrawal from this life, ask, how can I make an investment of good in God into this life? When we start to live our lives with this question of how may I serve and how may I be reverent at the forefront of our intention, we start to reap the benefits that we didn't know even existed. We actually start to see things that we didn't know were there. We begin to feel a strength from the divine, the infinite power that lives within us. When we show up as service, when we show up as reverent toward all of life, there is a power, an infinite power, the infinite creative mind that begins to show up in our life. And we start to live from that space of being a resource from the source. And know this, you cannot give away what is not in you. But as you open yourself up to that source with how may I serve, not only will you begin to have more to give to the world, but remember, it can't flow through you unless it has first come to you. So you are nurtured, and then you begin to be a nurturing force in the world. When you open yourself up to this divine presence and this flow of pure presence, it flows to you through your body and then begins to emanate it out into the world around you. In other words, look at it kind of like a water hole. That until that water hole is full, it cannot overflow. So your cup will become full because you're showing up as a servant. You're showing up as one who reverences the world. Your cup will become full, and then you'll be able to share that nurturing with the rest of the world. I love this quote from Hafiz. So I'm endeavoring to live this quote. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the whole sky. I believe I said this in the meditation this morning. It was either this morning or yesterday. Talking about the trees, talking about the vegetation that provides and produces oxygen for us to breathe and never issues a bill. When I'm living from a place of how may I serve, I'm living like nature does. The reason the universe around us is eternal, the universe was created by Source. The reason it's eternal is because it's always given. It's not just trying to benefit, it's choosing to be a benefactor. It's choosing to be conduit. One of the things that will make you eternally blessed and living in abundance is when you become a giver, when you become someone who can show up as service. And sometimes that service and that giving, let me just say this, giving does not mean that you give somebody money. Sometimes the giving is a smile, a hug, a kind word. Sometimes it's just being in the presence of someone else and just being loving awareness while you sit there with them. How may I serve invites these opportunities. Show up as a service. And look, there's a difference in service and position. Some people are so focused on their quote unquote purpose that when service shows up, they refuse to do it because they believe they need to have some kind of a position in order to fulfill their purpose. Don't worry about fulfilling a purpose. Show up as service. And things that are purposeful will begin to happen from your life. I believe that we are all visionaries. I believe that we all can have the vision that is attempting to flow to us from the source. And I believe that if we incorporate these teachings, our vision will become much more clear. And we will learn to show up as our full, authentic, and I'll just say it the way it comes to me, a self-realized, God-realized, actualized being. And then we will be a walking, talking, vibrational frequency, a happening, just like the Yud-He Vuv-He of the Old Testament of the Bible. The I am that we are, the Yud-He, the happening, the Yud-He Vuv-He, the happening of Source Presence shows up as us. Not in what we say necessarily, but just in our vibrational presence. So to go back over these again, remember that everything has a dharma. It has an inherent nature that includes you. Work in this life, well, don't work. Let me rephrase. Choose to show up as compassion and show compassion. Find strength in your curiosity and flexibility. Know that the I am is powerful, so be mindful how you use it. Let go of the false ideas. I am what I have. I am what I achieve. I am what people think of me. I am separate from everything I want in my life. I'm separate from God. Let go of those ideas. Seriously, release yourself from the prison of those ideas. Stop interfering in your own life or in others' lives. Just surrender. Let go. Learn to just be. Enjoy the mystery of life. Instead of pushing the mystery off because you want certainty, forget about it. There's really nothing certain in the world. There's not. The only thing that's certain is the constant unfolding of the pure presence, and it's a mystery to all of us because none of us can fully possess it all at one time. So, and yet you are in it, and its fullness is in you all at one time. But the brain does not know that. The brain's not aware of that allness. It's the pure presence that you are that's aware of that allness. But enjoy the mystery of life instead of hating it or pushing it aside. Relax and let go. Too often we're more connected to our history than we are free to enjoy the mystery. Work with the principle, practice the principle of radical humility. Be okay with getting low, with not being seen. I like to say, live your life on divine cash instead of the elusive credit of other people. If you have to pull credit from others, if you need credit from somewhere outside of you, you're always going to pay a high payment with a high interest rate. Be careful of those loan sharks. They will come calling on their loan. So study the art of radical humility. Know that the only thing that's real is that which never changes. That which changes not is the only thing that's real. So again, that's not your body. It's not your beliefs. That's not your thoughts. It's not your ego for sure. It's not even your persona. This at some point I'll unzip this skin suit and walk off into the next iteration of me. So this is obviously not real. And then number 10, let this be the mindset you choose. How may I serve? And how may I be reverent? Remembering that, as Hafiz said, even after all of this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Show up as your principled self. Show up as the pure self that you are. Show compassion. Find the strength and curiosity. Learn to operate within the power of the I am. And not only will you bring complete freedom to your own life, but you'll share that freedom with other people. Well, I want to say thank you for letting me be here with you extra long this evening so that we could finish this portion up as we begin to get ready to move into a new month. It's hard to believe, I guess. It shouldn't be hard to believe, but my mind is like telling me it's hard to believe that we're already toward the end of February in 2024, and we're still going through every open door that is set before us, because we know beyond the open door there's something wonderful for me. I'm saying that, declaring that in every single day and in every single moment, because I know that what I decree over my life will determine the experience of my life. I love you all very much. Love is who I am. Gratitude is my attitude. Abundance is my nature. Well-being is my birthright. And so it is. I hear the music getting started, so I'm going to get up out of here. Make sure you give a financial offering this evening so that you circulate. Make that exchange for these principles. Go ahead and give an offering this evening. Financial abundance is coming your way. I believe that. And financial abundance is here for One Love Consciousness Movement. Make that exchange. The giving screen will be up as we exit. I love you very much. Go and make it a great evening because you can.